What's going on, fellas? Welcome back to the stream. This is a part of our essentially daily stream. Obviously, I'm on vacation now. It's a little bit of a different schedule, but had some free time, so I decided to hop on another stream today, and here we are. So, anyways, since we talked last, there was UFC Shanghai. It was a card that I was talking about a lot. I gave out some picks for members and whatever, so if you guys are interested in getting picks, betting picks as well as just picks in general before the card starts. Be sure to hit that join button where you'll see all that information. But anyways, the card kind of played out a little bit interestingly. It wasn't the most exciting card in the world, but there were definitely some good fights on it. So there was a couple takeaways I thought from the card that I wanted to jump right into. The first one I wanted to jump right into is the Loney Kavanagh fight versus Charles Johnson. This is a really interesting fight. Obviously, Charles Johnson was able to get the victory, but I thought in the first round, Loney was kind of just doing the better work. And I thought it was actually very similar to the Joshua Van fight versus Charles Johnson, where Charles Johnson was kind of getting pieced up in the first round or first two rounds in the Van fight in the first round of the Kavanagh fight until he landed a big shot. Now, on that finishing sequence, Kavanagh did make a huge mistake by keeping his hands down very low, and his feet were all mixed up and whatever. It was just not a great look for him. This is the sequence here. I mean, it's kind of crazy to exit out with your hands down like that by your sides and look where his feet are. It's just, a little bit of inexperience, I think, on the part of Loney Kavanagh. But, credit to Charles Johnson as he was definitely able to capitalize on it. But yeah, I mean, I talk about this all the time, and I think Charles Johnson is actually a great example of this. But physicality is super important. In the first round of this fight against Kavanagh, in the first two rounds in the fight against Joshua Van, both of those guys were kind of piecing up Charles Johnson, but he was able to eat all the shots until he eventually was able to land one big shot of his own, and he was able to KO Joshua Van, and he's also able to knock out Loney Kavanagh in this one. So pretty good performance, I would say, overall from Charles Johnson. In terms of Kavanagh, I'm not jumping off the bandwagon yet. I still think he's very good. I still think he showed a lot of really good things in the first round of that fight, as well as in a lot of other performances. I just think it was somewhat of a lack of experience keeping his hands as low as he was on his finishing sequence when he was circling out, as well as the fact that in that second round he decided to grapple a little bit more than he did in the first, and I think that gassed him out a little bit. Obviously, it's not a great sign that he is gassing out with 2 rounds in the fight, but still, I think maybe better decision making going forward, maybe working on his cardio a little bit more. I think Kavanagh will be a-okay. He looked really good in honestly all aspects of the game, including the grappling. It just seemed like as the fight was progressing, he was starting to gas out a little bit, made a couple of mistakes, and got finished for it. So, as I said, I think Kavanagh will be fine. But good performance from Charles Johnson there. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. But yeah, so that was the first takeaway that I had from the fight, from the card, I should say. The other weird result on the card was Michel Pereira getting knocked out in 43 seconds. That was something that I did not see coming. I don't really think Kyle Dawkins is all that good. He was cut from the UFC before because he got finished a bunch of times. He got another chance and another opportunity to come back to the UFC, and he definitely capitalized on it. Great performance from him. I thought if he was going to beat Michel Pereira, it would have been because Michel would have gassed out. If you look at a lot of Michel's recent fights, he gasses out very quickly within the first 2 rounds. And honestly, as of late, it's been in the first round. So I thought that would be the way Kyle Dawkins would win if he did win. But to see him getting a knockout in the first 43 seconds was something I did not see coming. So good performance from Kyle Dawkins. Welcome back to the UFC. And that was definitely a good one as well. But moving on to the main card, we had Sumudaerji beat Kevin Borjas. Another kind of weird performance. It was kind of a sparring match, essentially, where Sumudaerji was landing the slightly better shots. Kevin Borjas just really wasn't trying to win, it seemed. Kevin Borjas has had some good performances in the past. I mean, he doesn't have too many wins in the UFC, but he definitely has had some performances in the past. But this fight was I don't know. It was just weird. He just didn't look good out there at all. And definitely not a good look for Borjas. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Who do you got? Yuri versus Roundtree. I'm still kind of going back and forth on this one. It is really close. I do kind of feel like whoever lands first is probably going to find the knockout. But at this point, I'm kind of leaning more and more in the direction of Khalil Roundtree personally, because he is going to be more technical. He is going to be, in my opinion, a lot faster than Yuri Prochazka. But Yuri's very dangerous, and he looked really good in his fight against Jamal Hill. So who knows what's going to happen? I still am going back and forth. To me, it's a 51-49 kind of fight in either direction. But at this point, I think I'm very slightly leaning towards Khalil Roundtree. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Walker's going to have to keep fighting like this. Yeah, it was actually a really good performance, or I don't know, really good, but it was a solid performance, I guess, from Johnny Walker in this one. He did a really good job at utilizing the leg kicks throughout the entirety of the fight. I think the reason why he was able to win was because he was able to keep his fight at space. If he gets in any sort of boxing range against anybody, including Min Yang Zhang, he's probably going to get knocked out. Johnny just makes way too many mistakes in there, especially in the boxing range when guys are able to put punches together in combination. And I thought Min Yang probably could have found a finish here if he closed the distance a little bit better. But this fight, for the most part, was held at range, which is exactly what Johnny wanted to do. He was able to land leg kicks. He kind of set it up pretty nicely with the right hand feint to the leg kick. And based off of that, Johnny was able to land a bunch of leg kicks and hurt Min Yang's leg, and he was able to find a finish. So, yeah, good performance from Johnny here. I know he's not necessarily known to be a guy that has great fight IQ, actually quite the opposite. But in this fight, I actually thought he did show some pretty good fight IQ, utilizing footwork, staying on the outside, utilizing that right hand to land that leg kick. He found that leg kick opening early on in the first round and didn't stop throwing the leg kick, and eventually was able to find the finish. Based on it. So good performance from him. I know he wants a title shot, or at least he wants to get back on that path to get a title shot. We'll see what Johnny's able to do. But even with this victory, I still feel like he has such a deficiency in the boxing, and I talk about this a lot. If you can't box, if every time you get into the boxing range you get hit or you get knocked out or whatever, it's just such a deficiency, and I think it's going to be difficult to overcome for anybody, including Johnny Walker. But Johnny's always a fun fighter. I've always been a Johnny Walker fan, so hopefully for his sake he's able to get a couple more wins under his belt, and who knows where he can go from there. I've said this about Johnny forever. He has all the intangibles. His length is ridiculous for the weight class. He's very powerful. He's very explosive. He's also very fast. So there's a lot of things to like about Johnny Walker. It's just he wasn't able to put everything together. But maybe at the new camp that he's at Extreme Couture, he'll be able to put things together a little bit better. I thought this performance he had here against Min Yang was one of his better performances in a while. So hopefully he can keep it going from here. I'm picking Yuri. Yeah, I don't fault you at all for that one. It's really close. As I said, it's, in my opinion, it really is like a 51-49 sort of pick for me. It is really close between the two guys. It should be a fun fight either way, though, whoever wins it. Johnny Walker. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't like this win from Johnny Walker was a good one. I don't know if I see this win though and be like, oh, Johnny Walker's actually back. I know that's the title, but it's kind of just being a little funny. I don't think Johnny Walker's ever going to be a real title contender at this point. As I said, he does have all the intangibles. It just seems like he isn't able to put everything together, and when he does get into boxing range, it's such a deficiency for him. We even saw it in this fight. He took a couple shots in this fight from Min Yang. So for Johnny, he could have success if the fight's at range. I just don't think most fighters are going to fight the way that Min Yang fought, and essentially fought at the range where Johnny Walker felt comfortable, honestly. But as I said, good performance from Johnny. Walker's having a career turnaround like Dominic Reyes. Well, I mean, he only has one win in a row, but we'll see. Maybe Johnny Walker can turn it around and put a couple wins together. I know he did call out Jan Blachowicz, who doesn't have a fight, and Jan Blachowicz is also 42, 43, however old he is. So maybe Johnny Walker can go in there and get a win over Jan Blachowicz, and if he's able to beat Jan Blachowicz, then all of a sudden he's not back in title contention at that point, but he's definitely a lot closer than he is, at least at this point. So we'll see. I mean, Johnny's currently number 13. He just beat the number 14th ranked guy. I assume Johnny's probably going to go to 12, maybe 11 in the weight class. And if he were to fight Jan Blachowicz next, Jan is currently number 5. And if he were to beat Jan Blachowicz, it'll be a top 5 guy. So, yeah. Crazy stuff. He's 49. Jan Blachowicz. How old is he actually? Actually, That's not what I wanted. I know, yeah, he's 42. Yeah, that's what I thought. Um, but uh, but yeah, honestly, it could be a good fight for him. I didn't think Jan looked amazing in his last fight. I actually thought he beat Olberg, but regardless, I didn't think Jan looked amazing. He is obviously slowing down a little bit, or maybe even significantly at this point. And at one point, Jan Blachowicz probably would have been a really difficult fight for Johnny, based on the fact that he does have a lot of power and his boxing is pretty good. It's still pretty good at this point. So it is something to worry about for Johnny, but because Jan is so much slower at this point and older, maybe Johnny has a chance. I don't know. We'll see what's next for him, or if they even make that fight next for Johnny. But yeah, so in the main event, Johnny put on a pretty good performance, I would say. In the co-main event, it was kind of a little bit of a boring one with Aljamain Sterling and Brian Ortega, but I still thought it was a good performance from Aljo. It was very odd. This fight was mostly contested on the feet. In my breakdown video about the fight, I did say that I thought Aljo could beat Ortega both on the feet as well as on the ground. I thought on the feet what he could do is utilize footwork, utilize range, and utilize a lot of kicks, which is exactly what Aljo did. He utilized the boxing a little bit more than I thought he would, and he was actually having success with his jab. But one thing I was surprised about in that fight is he really didn't look to utilize grappling at all. But still, very dominating win, 50-45 victory for Aljamain Sterling. And for Brian Ortega, I think most likely he's washed at this point, but at the very least, this guy needs to move up to 155. 145, obviously the cut is way too difficult for him. He showed it in this fight. He showed it in his previous fight versus Diego Lopez the first time they were scheduled to fight. And Ortega just needs to move up already at this point. He didn't really show all that much at all in this fight. In the fifth round, he won for it a little bit, but outside of that, Brian Ortega just didn't really do much in this fight. Not much volume at all from Ortega. You're not MSNBC. What do you mean? Welcome to the stream, though, brother. Just have an England amazing Taboria will run through Gaethje. Yeah, I mean, listen, it is fighting. I mean, anything could happen. But in a theoretical matchup, if they do put that fight together between Gaethje and Topuria, I would be very surprised if Gaethje won that fight. I just think stylistically, it's a good matchup. It is a good matchup for Topuria. I think on the feet, Gaethje is just very hittable, and on the ground, I even think Topuria would have a pretty big matchup, pretty big advantage, I should say. So yeah, I do think that Topuria has a really good chance and a really good stylistic matchup in this one, but who knows? Who knows? Open your mouth wider. Oh, my bad. Yeah, I had something going on. I got like some swelling in my mouth. I don't know exactly what's going on, so maybe that's why I have these issues. But my bad. The bad weight cut affected it. Yeah, most likely did. I mean, he really didn't throw all that much output at all, as I said, until the fifth round. But yeah, probably the weight cut had something to do with it. Maybe Ortega is also somewhat washed at this point. That's also probably something that could have played a role in that. But yeah, Ortega didn't look good at all. Yes, it was a pretty dominating performance from Aljamain Sterling, but regardless, Ortega really didn't look good at all in this fight for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, outside of the main and co-main, we had Sergey Pavlovich. It's kind of unfortunate, but it kind of feels like at this point, Sergey may be not a fun fighter anymore. I mean, at one point, Sergey Pavlovich was knocking everybody out in the first round. But at this point, he had 3 straight decisions. 2 of those 3 decisions were decision victories for Sergey, and this one was more of the same. I thought going into the fight, Sergey would just kind of be better, a lot better actually, than Waldo Cortez Acosta. That's kind of how the fight played out. I mean, I guess it was somewhat close, but I definitely felt like Sergey definitely won the fight. I'll put it that way. He was landing the better shots. There wasn't that much action in the fight, but the harder shots and the cleaner shots were definitely landed by Sergey Pavlovich. He was showing his boxing. He incorporated a couple of leg kicks in the fight. Not the most exciting fight, as I mentioned, but definitely a victory for Sergey Pavlovich. So another win for him. I wouldn't say the old Sergey is back at all at this point. The old Sergey was a guy that just threw down in the first minute of the fight. and got a bunch of first-round knockouts. But still, this is a 2-fight win streak from Sergey, and we'll see where he can go from here. If Gaethje beats Sabor, though, I'm going to say it was a fluke. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see, Dominic Reyes versus Zhang. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Just because, actually, no, it's actually definitely not going to happen, at least right now. If Dominic Reyes loses the next fight and maybe loses a couple of next fights, maybe. But Dominic Reyes is already fighting Carlos Ulberg. And if Dominic Reyes beats Ulberg, he'll get a title shot, I'm assuming. And Zhang Minyang is, what is he, number 14? Yeah, he's number 14, and he just lost to Johnny Walker. I wouldn't be shocked if Zhang's unranked after that loss. So, things would have to change. Zhang would have to get a couple wins under his belt, and I think Dominic Reyes would have to lose a couple fights. But if that happened, I guess theoretically we could see that. Fight. But what else? Actually, yeah, that's kind of it for the card. There was definitely some fights. Obviously, the timing of it was really weird. I actually didn't even watch all the fights, but I rewatched the Loney Kavanagh fight versus Charles Johnson. Turned out to be a good fight. The first round, Kavanagh did really well. In the second round, he got caught. The Johnny Walker fight was a good performance, I would say, from Johnny. Honestly, showed the best fight IQ that I've seen him have in maybe forever. So that was good. Aljo had a dominating performance. Sergey clearly won. Sumidarji won in a sparring match, and that's kind of the card. So definitely not a bad card, unfortunately for us. We have to wait a little time. I mean, next Saturday we have no card, but the card after that is going to be UFC Paris, Imavov versus Caio Borralho, which is going to be a really fun card, I think. The main and co-main are great. The rest of the card has some decent fights as well, but Imavov and Caio is a great main event. BSD versus Rufi is a great co-main event, and I think we're in store for a really good card. And as I said a bunch of times, whenever they go to Paris, usually the crowd is really good over there. So I'm excited for that card for sure. Is Ulberg Reyes or fight night? It's a fight night. It's in Perth, and it's coming up soon. When is that? That is September 27th. Yeah, it's a fight night in Perth, September 27th. I get Reyes beating Ulberg. Yeah, I think so too. I think there is a possibility of that. I don't know exactly who I'm leaning with at this point. I got to think more about it. But personally, I'm not too high on Ulberg at all. I know they gave him the victory over Jan Blachowicz, but in my opinion, I didn't think that was right at all. I thought Jan actually beat Ulberg. And in general, even outside of that Jan fight, I'm not too high on Ulberg. He's a little bit of a point fighter, in my opinion. He doesn't have that much venom on his shots. And I don't think he's just the best striker in the world either. So I do think Reyes has a real opportunity here to beat Ulberg. And as I said, if Dom is able to beat Ulberg, he probably will get a title shot in his next fight. And that would be crazy considering where he's gone ever since the John Jones fight. And getting knocked out a bunch of times. So working his way back, clawing his way back to a potential title shot would be very inspiring and would be a really good performance for Dominic Reyes. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think stylistically, it's probably not the worst matchup ever for Dom. At this point, probably a bad matchup for Dominic Reyes would be against a guy with a lot of power and good boxing. But I don't really think Carlos Ulberg is that. So we'll see. That should be a really good main event as well. And I talked about this a lot already, but now until probably the end of the year, it seems like every week we're having really good cards. I mean, all the cards that are announced already at this point are really good, like the Paris card that I mentioned. Even UFC Noche, like the main event's really good. Co-main event is solid as well. Rojas and Rob Font. The rest of the card sucks, but still, the main and co-main are good. Then you have Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes for UFC Perth, as we were mentioning before. Then you have UFC 320, which actually looks really good. And then you have Charles Oliveira versus Fiziev, which is a great card. You have Figueiredo versus Montel Jackson, which I also think is a really, really good fight. Then you have RDR versus Fluffy Hernandez the week after that. And then the week after that, you have UFC 321 and Tom Aspinall versus Rillagon. So we're definitely set. For a while. And those are just the fights that are announced. But also you got, the November card and the December card pay-per-views, one in MSG and one in Vegas, that are always good. UFC always looks to stack those cards, so I'm excited. Look at the team logo. A lot of guys are point fighters. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Honestly, a lot of them are kind of point fighters outside of Dan. It is kind of funny that Dan trains at the same gym because he's such a different fighter than everybody else in that gym. So yeah, I mean, I guess you can maybe say that Kai Kara France is not a point fighter. He's definitely not. But a lot of those guys from that gym kind of are. So yeah. I agree. They robbed Jan. They should have won that fight. Yeah, they definitely robbed Jan in that fight versus Olberg. And it's as I said, it's unfortunate. I mean, the guy's 42. He's at this point, I'm sure he's only fighting to get another title shot or potentially regain the belt. But because they gave him the loss on the scorecards, it's going to be difficult for him to get back to that point. It probably should have been Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz as a number one contender fight for the weight class, but instead they decided to give the fight to Carlos Ulberg, and now he's getting the opportunity to maybe get a title shot with one more win. So it's unfortunate for Jan, it really is, but I guess that's just the game, and judges are just not good. I mean, they've been not good for such a long time at this point, and it just seems like nothing changes. There's always like robberies on a lot of these cards, maybe not every card, but there is definitely a judging issue in the sport. I was just watching the I don't know how many people were watching it, but I was watching the LFA card yesterday, and the main event of that card was like a ridiculous robbery. It was insane scorecards. So it just seems like we just have a judging issue in MMA, in the UFC, and maybe MMA as a whole. It just seems like a lot of these judges don't really know what they're watching, unfortunately. But I guess that's just kind of how the game goes. And I don't know what the solution is. Just figure out a better method to find better judges. But, that's just the game, I guess. Izzy's a point fighter as well. And he fights just like Goldberg. Yeah. Yeah, pretty similar, the way they fight. I would say Izzy definitely does more than Olberg does. Izzy has great leg kicks. He gets a little bit more busy with the hands, I would even say. But yes, obviously there's been a bunch of fights where Izzy's kind of been point fighting by just jabbing and leg kicking to a decision victory. When he was champion, he was doing that quite a bit, actually, until he fought Alex Pereira. But yeah. Doesn't Alexander in the game? No, he fights in he doesn't fight in City. He fights in the other camp. I'm forgetting what it's called. But they co-train though. They kind of all train together. They're almost one gym. But yeah. Volkanovski's also a beast, and he's going to be fighting. What's his face? What the fuck's his face? He's going to be fighting. All right, great. Now I can't find it. Lerone Murphy. There we go. He's going to be fighting Lerone Murphy in his next fight. So that should be a good one. Volk has already talked about this before, and I think it's probably going to happen. I think win or loss against Lerone, Volk is probably going to retire. I mean, how much more could he do at this point? He was the champion for so long. He lost the belt. He regained the belt. If he's able to get one more defense of his belt the second time around against a really good contender in Lerone Murphy, I mean, how much more can the guy do? I wouldn't fault him at all if he decided to retire. I actually would encourage him to retire at this point. He's been fighting for quite a bit and has accomplished a lot for sure in the UFC. What's the best MMA team in your opinion? I don't know. I think that the Fighting Nerds are definitely good. They do get some criticism, but a lot of these guys are young up-and-comers. They obviously do have an advantage because a lot of the guys from the Fighting Nerds are also super explosive and super physical. And I talk about it all the time, but physicality is super important. I think, as I said before, Charles Johnson is a perfect example of why physicality is as important as it is. Because Charles Johnson, in a fight against Kavanagh, he was getting pieced up, and then he was able to eat the shots, and he was able to land a big right hand in that second round, finding the knockout. So physicality definitely does help the Fighting Nerds for sure, but I think they're one of the better teams out there for sure. I like Jackson Wink, Fighting Nerds, and City Kickboxing. Yeah, those are all solid teams. Jackson Wink is not what it once was. But yeah. I like Ian Gary and doing. Yeah, I agree. I also kind of like the pairing. I think Shoot the Box is also a really good team. The way they fight, super aggressive, and they usually push out a lot of really good fighters from that camp as well. So I think Shoot the Box is also a really good camp. But yeah. One second, boys. Let me get some water. Chat. My bad. But yeah, I do like the them two training together. I mean, obviously we saw some of the effects of it as Ian Gary in a couple of his fights against Shavkat, and even against MVP. He definitely did show some of the jiu-jitsu that he learned from Charles Oliveira in his camp. So yeah, honestly, pretty good thing. And I know a lot of people criticize Ian Gary for this, but I actually think it's not the worst idea in the world. Where he was kind of just training with a lot of different camps, learning a lot of different things from different camps. I actually think it's probably a pretty good idea, just to gain knowledge in a lot of different areas or different aspects of MMA, and you could put everything together and eventually find your home gym, I guess. But I don't think it's the worst idea. But I know a lot of these camps don't like it, and rightfully so. Um, but there's definitely a lot of really good camps out there. But there's also guys out there as well that don't train at a big camp and kind of just make it by themselves and um, just go from there. So yeah, guys do it in all different ways, whether it's a big camp, a small camp, whatever. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the card we had for yesterday or this morning, I guess. The new boys actually watched the card. I know it was at a really weird time. I kind of tried to wake up early for the card, but I ended up only waking up for part of the main card. I even missed part of it, but I ended up watching live the main event, the Johnny Walker fight. I also watched the Ortega fight, and I watched the Sergey fight. All three of those fights in full, but outside of that, I wasn't able to watch any of the other ones. The timing of it was kind of weird, at least for us in the U.S. But I guess for boys in the UK or in Europe in general is probably a lot better than the normal fight times. What's the name of Dubrov's camp? Shoot the Box. Shoot the Box. Usually, whenever you see a guy, even if so, going into a fight, if I see somebody's training how to shoot the box, usually I know they're going to be a fun fighter, and usually they're a pretty good fighter as well. So yeah, shoot the box is definitely a pretty good camp, and they put out good fighters for sure. Wasn't John Jones? And yeah, he was. He was. Yeah. It's just not as pronounced as it once was, but yeah, John Jones was there for sure. Um, but yeah, weird time for the card boys, but it was all good. It was all good. Also for yeah, it's actually a couple pretty good weeks for the Euro boys. As this week, the timing of it was probably pretty good for you, and then not next week, but the week after that in Paris, it's obviously going to be good timing for them as well. So not bad. Ian Gary comes from that camp, right? Shoot the box, yeah, he comes from that camp. He was kind of training all over the place at a point, but yeah, he kind of settled in with Charles Oliveira, and he trains at Shoot the Box at this point. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of at Shoot the Box, he doesn't really fight like a Shoot the Box fighter. The only thing that he kind of took away from that is the grappling, is the jiu-jitsu. But in terms of his striking, he strikes nothing like the Shoot the Box guys. So I guess he doesn't really work on that that much, at least with those guys. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's a good camp overall. Max Holloway comes from a grand camp too. Yeah, Max Holloway is an example of somebody that doesn't come from a big camp, and he doesn't train with a bunch of high level names, high level UFC fighters or anything like that. But he kind of just makes it work, and also it also helps the fact that Max Holloway is an all time great fighter. So that definitely helps as well. And yeah, as I said, everybody kind of does it their own way. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Are you in China? No, no, I'm not in China. Um, it seems like Gary adopted Brazil. Yeah, yeah, he did. I think he has some ties to Brazil from his wife or whoever. I don't know, but yeah, yeah, he lives there, I believe. But but yeah. Oh, also the other thing that I wanted to mention was there was an addition to UFC 320 that was announced in the live broadcast today. It is Josh Emmett versus Yusuf Zalal. I like this fight. I did like this fight. I I haven't. I've been kind of asking about Yusuf Zalal for a while. I kind of wanted to see when he's going to fight next. I think he's a really good fighter, and putting him up against a powerful striker, but not a great striker in Josh Emmett, I think is a good match. Is a good matchup and a good matchmaking, and another good addition to UFC 320. So I think that card's going to be really good, and I'm personally happy with that fight addition. Just engaging Kamaru camps are great too. Yeah, yeah. For Kamaru, he kind of trains at two camps, um, but yeah, yeah. They're definitely a good camp. Did you get your picks right, Juicy? Some of them, yeah. Some of them, no. So for the main event, I got it wrong. I was kind of assuming that Zhang Minyang would just go in there and knock out Johnny Walker. I'm happy Johnny won. I'm actually a Johnny Walker fan, so I'm happy to be wrong about that one. The Aljamain Sterling fight, I was very confident Aljo would win, and he kind of did what I expected him to do. Just less grappling than I thought would occur, but I thought Aljo would win via decision, and he did. I thought Sergey would dominate Waldo Cortez Acosta. I wouldn't say he dominated him, but I would say he definitely won the fight. So I got that one right as well. The Sumudarji versus Kevin Borjas. I thought Borjas had a chance here, but Sumudarji pulled it off, so I got that wrong. And Lonnie Kavanagh, I thought would be Charles Johnson. That was wrong. I thought, what else I think? Yeah, those are all the picks that I can remember off the top of my head. But in terms of the videos I put out, I was 2 for 3, I guess, with Lonnie Kavanagh being the one loss. Josh Emmett was added to UFC 320. Yep, he was. Him versus Yusuf Zalal. I'm not a John Walker fan. Let's go. Yeah, Johnny Walker really fucked the UFC there. But listen, even if Johnny Walker got knocked out by Zhang, I don't think Zhang's very good. I mean, yes, he does have a lot of power if he can get into boxing range. He's shown a good chin and he's shown a good ability to land big power shots. But we saw in this fight against Johnny Walker that he just can't close the distance. If a guy's utilizing footwork and staying on the outside, Zhang just cannot close distance, and it's a real flaw for him. And if Johnny Walker, out of all people, were able to exploit it, I do think other guys would have been able to exploit it along the way. So, yeah, I'm sure if Zhang won this fight, it would have benefited the UFC greatly, as you said. But, the next guy he fought probably would have beaten him. Maybe Zhang makes some adjustments. Maybe he gets a little bit better, but good performance from Johnny. I thought it was a good adjustment, good mid-fight adjustment, utilizing leg kicks. But I think this fight was more indicative of how not great Zhang is, as opposed to Johnny Walker putting on an amazing performance, in my opinion. I was never high on Zhang. Yeah. He just seems like he's I don't know. He's just like a little bit too one-dimensional. If he can get into boxing range, yeah, he'll be able to clip you. Or not guaranteed, but there's a decent chance that he'll be able to land a shot. He has decent inside boxing. But if you can utilize footwork and keep range, he really doesn't have an answer for it. And it's not like he's a great grappler. He doesn't really have much kicks. So Johnny Walker, out of all people, was able to exploit that, and he was able to get a big win here. But we'll see how Zhang recovers, if he makes any improvements. I believe Dominic Reyes would do number on Zhang. Yeah, probably. I can see that for sure. But I don't think they're ever going to fight. They're just too far apart, as I said before. Zhang is currently number 14, but after his loss, he might be unranked. And Dominic is number 8 in the rankings. And if he beats Carlos Ulberg, he'll get a title shot in his next fight. So, yeah. That's kind of how we go from here. In terms of fighters on the card that I would like to see next, so for Johnny Walker, he's coming off a good win against Zhang. For Johnny Walker, who would I like to see him fight next? Maybe you could do Johnny Walker versus Bogdan Guskov. I think that fight makes sense. Johnny Walker would be fighting up in the rankings against Bogdan, who's number 10 at this point. I think that's a fight that makes sense. A lot of these other guys in the rankings are kind of already booked. So it's probably the fight I would say would work. For Aljamain Sterling, I know he wants the title shot. He's not going to get it off that performance, unfortunately for him. So I think a fight that makes sense for Aljamain Sterling next is him versus Movsar Evloev. Honestly, I know they already fought, but do the rematch. Why not? Do the rematch, or maybe you can do Aljamain Sterling versus the loser of Diego Lopez and Gian Silva, which is probably going to be Diego Lopez. Maybe you could do that fight as well. But a fight that I personally like the most is Alger versus Evloev. As I said, I know they fought before, but it was really close. And I think if they fought again, that could be a real number one contenders fight, or title eliminator sort of fight. So that's what personally what I would make. Zhang could be a prelim warrior, but bro, I was never getting into Shanghai. Yeah, I could see that. I could see a fighter like him being on the prelims, getting a couple wins, getting a couple losses. I could definitely see that. If he's fighting a guy who's not so great out there and somebody who's kind of willing to fight in the pocket inside that inside boxing range, I do think Zhang could have success. But if you have any sort of guys that utilize footwork like Johnny did in this fight, I think Zhang will have a lot of problems with those kind of fighters. So I could see him kind of being a run-of-the-mill UFC fighter, like a prelim sort of fighter. I wouldn't mind sitting. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all either. I know he took a lot of time off ever since his last fight, which I thought was actually a good move. But at this point, yeah, he took literally no damage in this fight. He took a couple shots up top, but not much damage. And he was never really hurt or anything like that. So I wouldn't mind seeing Johnny Walker make a quick turnaround, but we shall see. Maybe Walker comes back in November for MSG. Yeah, maybe they decide to do that. But yeah, as I said, a lot of these guys are booked. That's the only problem at light heavyweight. So the only guy that I think makes somewhat sense is him versus Guskov. Everybody else is either booked for a fight or I don't think makes sense. Jamal Hill, I don't think makes any sense against Johnny Walker. They already fought before. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you could rebook that, but we'll see. Unless they want to do the Jan Blachowicz fight, I guess that could work. But we'll see what's next for Johnny. Movsar deserves a title shot. Yeah, he definitely deserves it, but he's not going to get it, especially after Lerone got to finish the way he did. I thought the winner of that fight between Lerone and Pico, regardless, was going to get the title shot next, but especially after the way that Lerone was able to win that fight via a very incredible spinning elbow. He's going to get the next title shot, I believe, against Volkanovski. And then for Movsar, yeah, he probably does deserve a title shot, and he's kind of getting passed up on a couple different times. But I think probably what's going to be next for him is he's going to fight Aljamain Sterling again or something like that. Or maybe he'll fight Diego Lopez again. Or I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be, but he's probably going to need to fight at least one more time before he gets a title, unfortunately for him. And I say this because as I said, the UFC has been passing up on Movsar for a while at this point. So after he pulled out of the fight against Aaron Pico, I don't think the UFC is going to all of a sudden be like, oh, yeah, we'll reward you and we'll just give you a title shot anyway. I don't think that's how it's going to go, unfortunately, for Movsar. Or Walker versus Jan. Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind Walker versus Jan. Would be a pretty big step up in the rankings for Johnny Walker. But honestly, I don't hate it. As I said, everybody else around Jan Blachowicz is kind of already booked for a fight. So if you want to do Jan versus Johnny Walker, sure, go ahead. I wouldn't mind the matchmaking at all. If Tapore doesn't fight yeah, that's the one for December. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I guess a little bit of a quick turnaround, maybe. Not really. Yeah, I would like that fight. Also, Murphy didn't take that much damage in that fight against Pico. He took a couple big shots, but nothing that really hurt him that badly. So, yeah, I think he probably should be fine at this point. And hopefully no injuries after that fight for Murphy. So if you want to do that fight for UFC 323, which I'm assuming that card is going to be for December, I wouldn't mind that at all. Honestly, maybe that's the fight they do for that card. And for Volkanovski, obviously, he's had some time off at this point, so he should be ready to go as well for December. I shouldn't have been fighting Pico in the first place. Yeah. It is unfortunate because, I mean, after that fight, I talked about it. I know Pico got knocked out, but that's kind of how he loses. I really thought after that fight, my main thought was amazing performance and an amazing finish, of course, by Lerone. But at the same time, I thought Pico showed that he deserves to be in the UFC. And I think with a couple of adjustments, this guy could be really good. His boxing is really good. His body shots were nice. His combinations were really nice. His wrestling looked pretty good as well in the fight versus Lerone. Although it was a short fight, I thought his wrestling looked good. So there's a lot of things to like about Aaron Pico, and I think he'll be fine. And honestly, if Aaron Pico fought Movsar, I honestly think Aaron Pico would have beat Movsar. Obviously Movsar's a great fighter, but when you watch Aaron Pico, usually the way he loses is via KO. That's kind of what we saw in this fight versus Lerone Murphy. But Movsar has no finishes in the UFC, so although he is a good striker, he's not nearly as dangerous as some other guys. And because of that, I kind of feel like Pico might have beat him. But what are you going to do? That's how it goes. Tapori did say recently that he wanted to fight again this year. So the UFC just gonna... Yeah. I did hear that he wants to fight this year, but it is kind of weird. I don't know what the UFC is planning on doing. Maybe they're just going to give one of these guys an immediate title shot between Gaethje, Arman, or Paddy. But it seems kind of weird. There's like no movement at all from any of these guys. They're not getting booked to fight each other. They're not getting booked to fight anybody. And if all three of these guys need to fight again before they fight for the title, it's seeming unlikely at this point, to say the least, that Topuria is going to fight again this year. But maybe they just decide to give Arman the title shot immediately, which they probably should do. But I don't really know what the UFC's plans are. I think Movsar would have beat Pico. Yeah, he maybe would have beaten him. He is very good. He's very well-rounded for sure. Good striking, really, really good grappling. But I think Pico kind of matches that in an extent. On the feet, Pico is obviously significantly more dangerous than Movsar is. And on the ground, Movsar is probably the better grappler. Actually, I would say he is the better grappler. But Pico is no slouch at all. He has really good wrestling. So I think it would have been an interesting fight. And if the fight was held in the feet, honestly, I think I would favor Aaron Pico based on his boxing, based on his danger factor. He obviously hits a lot harder. It would have been an interesting fight, but obviously Lerone got the shot. And he was able to capitalize on that opportunity. And now all of a sudden he's getting a title shot next, most likely, at the very least. So it's kind of another example of how one simple thing can change the course of history. I mean, JDM was initially not supposed to get the shot. It was supposed to be, what's his face? It was supposed to be Shavkat getting the title shot against Bilal. Then Shavkat had to pull out via an injury, and then JDM got the shot against Bilal, and JDM ended up beating Bilal in a pretty, good performance from JDM. So this is another one of those examples. It was supposed to be Movsar versus Pico. Movsar gets hurt. Lerone Murphy slots in. He beats Pico, and now if Lerone becomes the champion, it'll be another one of those scenarios. Dan Hooker said he wants to return, and was going to rebook him versus Gaethje, considering the fight was supposed to happen. Yeah, I don't mind that. I would like to see Dan Hooker come back. I mean, he's been out for a while, but yeah, it seems like his hand is all healed up and ready to go. And yeah, I heard that he was talking about fighting at MSG. I think there's a lot of matchups you can put together for Hooker. I personally don't think Gaethje is going to accept that fight versus Dan Hooker, but if they did, I mean, obviously it's a great fight. I would love to see it. I just don't think Gaethje is going to want to fight Hooker at this point. He's made it pretty clear that he wants to fight for the title or not fight at all. So for Hooker, I think there's a lot of fun fights you can put together. You can do Hooker versus Arman. You can do Hooker versus Gaethje, as you said, but I don't think it's super likely. You could do Hooker versus Paddy Pimblett. I think that's another fun fight. You would do Hooker versus Roofy potentially if Roofy beats BSD. Maybe you could do that fight. There's a lot of really good options for Dan Hooker at this point. A lot of guys that he hasn't fought yet, and a lot of fun fights, I think, personally. MB, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Yo, welcome whenever. Take a moment. Let's go, bro. Let's go. Good prediction for sure. Yeah, we were talking about it before. It was a good performance. I definitely would say it was a good performance from Johnny Walker. It was probably his best fight IQ that he's ever showed, ever throughout his career. he did a really good job at keeping range, utilizing footwork, utilizing distance, and he utilized a really good right hand feint. Every time he feinted the right hand, he would throw the leg kick. So it was a really good read on Johnny Walker's part. Maybe it was an in-fight read that he made, or maybe it was because of his camp. Either way, really good read by whoever saw it out, and he was able to win based off leg kicks. It was a good performance from Johnny Walker for sure, but I think this is more indicative of Zhang, in my opinion. I personally thought that Zhang looked not great at all. I mean, if he is able to get into close boxing range, he could have success, but because Johnny Walker was utilizing footwork and Zhang just wasn't able to get in the inside, he kind of showed a deficiency to his game by not being able to cut off the cage, not being able to force his way into boxing range. And at long distance range, I should say, he was kind of just getting picked apart by leg kicks. So good performance from Johnny, but also not a great performance from Zhang, I thought. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. I'm sick. yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know what to say. Yeah, listen, Gaethje definitely does not deserve a title shot next. Even if they did give him a title shot, I highly doubt he would beat Topuria. But he definitely doesn't deserve a title shot next. What should probably happen is it should be Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. I think that fight makes all the sense in the world. But they decided, or Gaethje is deciding that he doesn't want to take that fight. So he's most likely just going to retire, or eventually he's going to agree to fight somebody else. But I don't think he deserves a title shot, and I don't think he's going to get one. But we'll see. Hit him right in the nerve. Yep. It was nice. It definitely was nice. Justin said, yeah. I did hear that. Yeah, so maybe, I mean, if he did fight Dan Hooker, he'll probably get paid pretty handsomely. So maybe they could put that fight together, and maybe Gaethje would be on board for it. But also, I think if they did Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, I think Gaethje would have got paid significantly for that fight as well. So I don't know. It kind of seems like he's just being a little bit stubborn at this point, and he's not really willing to fight anybody except for the belt, which, as I said, I don't think he deserves. But I guess we'll see. We kind of have a little bit of a stalling out, honestly, at 155. Dan Hooker wants to fight. Max Holloway wants to fight next year, but Charles Oliveira already is booked. There's some other guys that are booked, but there's a lot of guys that are just kind of waiting and not getting fights booked, like Arman Tsarukyan, like Justin Gaethje, as I said, like Paddy Pimblett, and there's some other guys as well. We need more action. We need more matchmaking at that weight class, especially at the top half of the weight class. But one thing I will say for Arman Tsarukyan, he's at the very least trying to fight. It's just other guys are not accepting it. Saying he's a blockhead, he doesn't use his hand. Yeah. He's kind of we kind of talking about it before in the stream, and I completely agree. I think Zhang is just going to be one of those guys that he's going to be a run-of-the-mill type fighter in the UFC, probably like a prelim guy on a pay-per-view, or maybe a main card guy on fight nights. I don't think he's going to be very good. I think he's going to win one or win two and then lose one or lose two. His career is going to be up and down. If he finds a guy or an opponent that is willing to, engage with him in the inside boxing, I think he'll have success. I think he'll get some, fun finishes. But if guys are like Johnny Walker did in this fight, are utilizing footwork, staying on the outside, I think Zhang will have a lot of trouble with those sort of fighters. So I think his career is going to be very up and down. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 guy or anything like that. But at the same time, I don't think he's bad enough to get cut from the UFC. I think it's just going to be, he'll be with the UFC for a little bit. He'll have some good performances, some bad, and we'll go from there. You can do Paddy versus Hooker too because they're close in the rankings. Yeah. That's a fight that I was talking about before. I think you could definitely do that as well. I think it makes a lot of sense if you do that. If you do Hooker versus Paddy, I think that kind of takes Gaethje out of the equation for a title shot, in my opinion. Because if you do Hooker versus Paddy, I think you give Arman the title shot immediately against Ilya, and then the winner of Hooker versus Paddy should get a title shot after that. I think that would actually be deserving for Paddy at the very least, and maybe even for Dan, it would be deserving as well. He would be on a win streak if he were able to beat Paddy. Look at the other side, bro. Which fight more time? Pinlet versus Gaethje or which fight would I rather see? Yeah, I mean, obviously Gaethje versus Hooker is a more entertaining fight, um, for sure, for sure. Um, but as I said, I just don't know if Gaethje's going to accept it. But I guess we'll see what happens. How do you see Gaethje Hooker going? It's actually an interesting fight. Gaethje Hooker. It's probably going to be a lot of teep kicks from Hooker, I should say, and a lot of range trying to be kept by Hooker. And it's going to be Gaethje trying to get on the inside, utilizing a lot of leg kicks, probably successfully. I think Gaethje's leg kick is going to be a huge weapon for him in all of his fights, but especially against Dan. And in the end, I think Gaethje may be able to get it done. Early prediction, but I don't know. I have to think about that one a little bit more. It's going to be Walker versus Yan next. Yeah, I actually think that fight kind of makes sense. So I could definitely see that fight be getting made as the next fight. It is a big step up in competition, or at least in the rankings for Johnny. But at the same time, everybody's kind of booked around Jan Blachowicz. So I could definitely see them booking that fight, and I wouldn't disagree with that. It's so funny that Armin has all money in the world. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It is definitely interesting. Um, Gaethje has to be 5 rounds latest because 3 favors Hooker. Does it favor Hooker? I don't even know. To be honest, I don't even know. Maybe. Yeah, I would like to see that fight being 5 rounds just because it'll be a great fight. But both guys are really dangerous from the jump. Both guys have shown good cardio. So I think if it's 3 or 5 rounds, I don't really know if there'd be an advantage for either guy. But I would personally like to see it being a 5-rounder. It's just a really fun fight. But yeah. What else we got here? But yeah, solid card overall. Today it was kind of a weird timing of it, but it was a solid card overall. And we move on to UFC Paris. But yeah, I'm just watching back the spinning elbow from Aljamain Sterling. Really good job from Aljo with the spinning back fist. I thought his striking looked fine, not amazing. I thought it looked fine, but yeah, he wasn't able to get the finish, unfortunately for him. And because of that, I don't think he's getting a title shot next. Do you see Gaethje knocking him out? No, I don't actually. I don't think so. I think probably Hooker will be able to survive. I think it would be a close fight either way. Maybe we could see a similar matchup to when it was Hooker versus Poirier. Maybe we could see a similar thing to that, where it's kind of a back and forth affair. I do think that fight would be really close between Hooker and Gaethje, but I think the leg kicks would be really, really big for Gaethje. But who knows? Who knows? I mean, Gaethje was knocked out not too long ago against Max Holloway. If Hooker lands a couple shots, maybe he can, get to the chin of Gaethje, and maybe Hooker could find a knockout. Who knows? And Hooker is also on the up and up at this point. He's on a 3-fight win streak, I think, at this point. So it's an interesting fight. I think maybe early predictions, I slightly lean towards Gaethje, but it's a close fight. And I would definitely have concerns about Gaethje's chin a little bit. I was crushed when that fight got canceled between. Yeah, it sucked. It sucked for sure. And then it was Fiziev. I mean, obviously Gaethje still put on a good performance. Good for him for accepting the fight and winning his fight against Fiziev. But yeah, obviously Gaethje versus Hooker is a significantly better and more exciting fight than Fiziev versus Gaethje was. But yeah, hopefully they could put it back together down the line. But we'll see. So stand-up isn't as bad as people make it out to be. Yeah, he kind of just has like a weird style. He has a funky style, as his nickname is. It's just funky. He's able to throw shots on weird angles, but he is somewhat effective with it at times. I think his kicks are certainly the best aspect of his striking. His kicks and footwork, for sure, which don't lead out to be a very exciting fight for which most of the time we don't see very exciting fights from Aljo on the feet, and this was another example of that. But I do think he is somewhat effective on the feet. It seems like he's very open to get hit. We saw that take place in his fight against Sean O'Malley. But outside of the Sean O'Malley fight, Aljo doesn't get hit all that much on the feet, and he kind of just makes it work with that funky style, and he is definitely effective with it, as we saw against Brian Ortega. The majority of the fight was on the feet, and Aljo was landing leg kicks really effectively. That was his most effective weapon in the fight. Also, his jab was working nicely. As I said, a spinning elbow. He had one spinning elbow in the fight that landed pretty cleanly. Yeah, pretty good performance, I'd say. Armin's like, let's go. Oh, man. Also, Hooker is way taller than Gaethje, just longer, man. Yeah, he is definitely taller than Gaethje. But Gaethje hasn't really shown an inability to fight guys with a longer reach than him. Usually, how Gaethje fights anyway is getting on that inside, throwing dirty boxing combinations, throwing the uppercut, throwing leg kicks in close, which is something that most people can't do. But Gaethje does a really good job at throwing leg kicks in close. So I do think this fight is probably going to be fought in the pocket to an extent. Maybe Hooker will look to utilize some footwork. I'm sure he will. But for the most part, I do think Gaethje will be able to close the distance, force the fight in the pocket. And at that point, the reach disadvantage that Gaethje would have, I don't think would be too monumental, in my opinion. But yeah. What else we got here, fellas? What else we got here? Man, that is crazy. Someone says Aljo versus the winner of Silva versus Lopez next. Versus the winner? I don't think so. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, honestly. Because I think it makes sense if Lopez beats Silva, then you can do Aljo versus Lopez. I think that makes sense. But if Silva beats Lopez, I think Silva is going to get the next title shot, I believe. Gene Silva is a really exciting fighter, a guy that seems to have somewhat of a fan base for sure. So I think the UFC is going to push him, and they always tend to push guys that go for the finish all the time, and Gene Silva is one of those guys. So if Gene Silva beats Lopez, which I think he will, I do believe that the UFC is just going to give him a title shot. I also don't think the UFC is accurate fighters. I don't think it's the same. I think it's 5-7. Yeah. A lot of these, honestly, it's not only limited to the UFC. I mean, even in other sports organizations like the NFL or the NBA, it seems like they're kind of off with a lot of these measurements. So yeah. Ortega looked at least 3 inches taller than Aljo. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, they're just off sometimes. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, fellas? But yeah, someone's pointing out the card for UFC 320. It's definitely a really good card, actually. The main event: Magomed versus Pereira, Murad versus Corey, Sanhagen, Yuri versus Roundtree, Josh Emmett versus Lal is the new addition, and then Boost versus Joe Pyfer. Definitely a lot of really good fights on that card. So I'm excited for it. And as we said before, going into fall, it's always really fun fights. And this year is nothing different. It's definitely nothing different. Now I believe Sterling's actually 5'7". Yeah, he might be. Actually, I walked by him. I think you're probably right. He's probably around 5'7", 5'8". I went to one of the cars in Long Island, and he just happened to walk right by me. And he was a lot smaller than not a lot smaller. He was a lot bigger than actually I originally thought, because at that point he fought at 135. But yeah, he's probably around like 5'7", 5'8", probably. Actually, no, he's probably taller than that. No, he's probably like 5'9" or something like that. Broski, yeah, I love it. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, maybe, yeah, yeah. Ortega just is not the same fighter. I mean, I think in part it was because of his weight cut. I mean, he looks so bad on the scales, man. It was insane. And maybe he didn't really go for it that much because he was afraid that he would gas out, and he kind of just waited for the 5th round to go for it, as he went for it a little bit more in that round. But yeah, he just looked really bad overall. And I think partially it could be due to the really bad weight cut this time around. It also could be due to the fact that you know, he just can't make the weight at 145 anymore in general, even besides this specific time where he had a really bad weight cut, or maybe he's just washed. It could be any one of those options, but I'm assuming in his next fight, Ortega is going to move up to 155. And if he still looks terrible at that weight class, then he's just washed at this point, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just a terrible performance, honestly, from Ortega. He really didn't do anything in that fight. In the 5th round, he threw some combinations together. I believe he landed like one big shot that kind of buckled Aljo, but outside of that, he really did nothing throughout 5 rounds. Ortega needs to move up. Yeah, I agree. He definitely needs to move up. But we'll see. He honestly could be washed. We'll see. Other than 2 stumps and versus Volk, he's been a punchy bag for years. Honestly, yeah. He has been. His defense has been notoriously terrible. I mean, he has a great chin, so he's able to survive in a lot of these fights. But yeah, his defense has been terrible for years. His striking is nothing great. And yeah, I mean, he had the win against Yair last year, I believe it was, or not too long ago, whenever it was. I actually thought that was a good performance after taking a lot of damage on the feet. But outside of that one Yair win, and I don't even think Yair is that good, but outside of that one Yair win, yeah, Ortega just hasn't really done that much. He kind of just takes a lot of punishment in a lot of his fights and loses them, unfortunately. But yeah, if Ortega moves up, Michael Chandler would be a perfect dance partner for that. Ooh, actually, I like that a lot. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I would like to see Chandler versus Ortega at 155. Makes a lot of sense, I think, for sure. I always wanted to see BSD versus Michael Chandler, but obviously that's not going to happen. They already did BSD versus Rufi, which is also another fun fight. But considering that, I think Chandler versus Ortega would be fun. Unless, I mean, honestly, they both may be washed. So maybe it'll be a fun fight because they both are washed. I don't know. We'll see. Do you think Ortega will be unranked if he moved up? Yeah. He definitely will be unranked. Regardless of who you are, you're always going to be unranked whenever you move up. You have to fight one time. And based on your performance, if you win against a ranked guy, you'll be ranked. If you lose, sometimes you could be ranked as well, even. I mean, Kai Sakura lost to Pantoja, and he was ranked number 15 after that fight. But your first fight going into a new weight class, you're never ranked. You have to fight at least one time. But, yeah. I saw Guru talking about this fight card and the Shanghai card, and he was kind of saying that the crowd sounds like Wii Sports. Honestly, it's so true. It's so funny. Ever since I heard that, I couldn't stop listening to it. It's honestly really funny. Definitely is true. Ortega versus Dariush. Yeah, you could do that as well. You could definitely do that as well. I think him versus Chandler is a fight that makes more sense and is more exciting, but you could do him versus Dariush as well. I just don't know how much that pushes Dariush, as Dariush is coming off a win and he's also getting a little bit older, so he's going to want to fight some guys that are ahead of him in the rankings to get closer to that title shot. But in terms of a matchup, I think it could be good, could make sense. But anyways, fellas, if you have any more questions, be sure to let me know in chat. I definitely will answer your questions, but I think I may hop off soon. I would favor Ortega against Chandler. Yeah, I probably would as well at this point in Chandler's career. I mean, both of them haven't looked good as of late, but I think Chandler looks pretty washed at this point. So, yeah, I think I probably would favor Ortega as well. But we'll see. And we'll see if the fight even gets made. But anyways, fellas, I appreciate you boys for hopping onto the stream. In terms of streaming tomorrow, I'll let you guys know if I stream. Obviously, I'm not home right now, and I don't know exactly my streaming schedule, but I will be back on Thursday the 28th, and I don't know if I'm going to stream on that Thursday, but starting on Friday of this upcoming week, I will be streaming. Be getting back to my normal streaming setup, and I'll be getting back to my normal streaming schedule. So just bear with me until then. I'll definitely hop on a couple times on stream as I'm doing now when I'm away, but it'll be here and there until I get back home. Anyways, boys, I appreciate everybody for being here. Thanks for all your questions, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, boys.